Yeah, thank you, Alan, for joining us on our live streams that we're doing for FreeBSD Day. Um,
Yes.
tell me, how'd you get started with FreeBSD?
Yeah. So thank you. FreeBSD Day's been a fun thing for a couple of years now. So getting started
Oh,
with
well, I tell
FreeBSD.
you what, maybe we're going to make it more fun. So we can talk about that later, Alan. If we can make it even more fun. Anyway, go ahead.
Yep. Uh, Back to the very late 90s, I was just getting into using the internet and had discovered IRC and was having a lot of fun with that and wanted to set up my own IRC server. And so I kind of looked into what was involved in that. And at first, somebody pointed me to the software that you run to have your own IRC server. And so I went to the website and downloaded it. And it was a file type I'd never seen before, .tar.gz. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but WinRAR will open it. So, okay. And I look around inside and I'm like, there's no like Windows executable file in here. How do you run this? And they're like, no, 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 you need Unix. You have to have a shell account to do this. And I'm like, what's that? And so a little bit of research later, I had an account on somebody's FreeBSD machine and I was compiling software and running it. And then after that went on for a little bit, I got my own whole machine to run FreeBSD on and put it in a co-location and started my journey of becoming a sysadmin and a hosting provider. And then that led to the next thing and the next thing. And then years later, I was teaching Unix administration courses at a college here, which is like a community college in the US, but not exactly, but a trade
Mhm.
school anyway. So teaching sysadmin courses at a trade school. And then one of the other professors and I started a video streaming company, and we built that using FreeBSD, and that went very well. And then, as you mentioned, Clara, back in 2018, having been part of the FreeBSD project for a while and seeing how things were going, it became clear that what FreeBSD needed to continue to grow was a company people could turn to when they had issues with FreeBSD. So whether they were just looking to get some development done or had a specific problem they were running into or whatever, having somewhere to go other than, post on the mailing list and hope somebody in their spare time has time to help you, being
Mhm.
able to get support and development work done by a team of people. And so we got some people together and started Clara to provide the development and support services around FreeBSD and OpenZFS.
Excellent. Excellent. That's really interesting. So you're a little bit of a serial entrepreneur.
Technically, I suppose.
Well, we hope that you continue working on FreeBSD with Clara for a while. So uh, we were talking a little bit, just being, I guess, actually, let's talk about the core team. We were connecting before the call. And you were just elected to the next core team.
Yeah. So I originally, when I first got my access in the project back in 2014, started looking into what that was. And then in 2016, I was elected to the FreeBSD core team for the first time and worked with a great group of people there. And then was reelected for 2018. But by the end of that, I was pretty occupied running Clara and
Hmm.
getting that off the ground and so on. So, and I had just done 2 terms in a row, so I let some other people step up and help keep the project going. But now it's 2024, and the project needed people to step up again, so I did. And yeah, I think my big goals for this term are to continue to push the project to have more of the building blocks and the pieces for people who are trying to build appliances or virtual machine images or cloud images out of FreeBSD to make that process easier and more approachable. Because
Hmm.
it's one of the core benefits and unique selling points of FreeBSD is that if you want to build a custom appliance, you can grab FreeBSD, you know, write a couple of configuration files and run some commands and get a fully customized image of FreeBSD up and running very, very quickly, and know that you have the stability guarantees that FreeBSD has and the kind of long-term support to be able to continue to build that and have a product that is quick to get to market, but also easier to maintain.
Hmm.
Having helped a bunch of companies that have been doing FreeBSD for a while try to get caught back up and stay in sync with FreeBSD, there's quite a few lessons we've learned there. And then having helped some new customers who are building, medical appliances and things like that that are going to use FreeBSD to see where some of the problem areas still are when you're coming at this completely fresh and don't have all the kind of built up institutional knowledge of how to build your own, custom version of FreeBSD
Oh,
and the
okay.
chance to do it, the right way from the start.
Oh, I like that. I'm pretty sure the community and users are going to love the idea of more support for appliances and getting those building blocks in place. So, anything else that you are uh, that you're thinking of with the core team this time around?
Yeah, one other thing that I did just near the end of my previous term, which was quite popular, was the idea of FreeBSD office hours.
Oh,
So
okay.
we had
Yeah.
these kind of uh, live streams that people were invited to come and ask questions and get support.
Yeah.
It was originally something that the ZFS community did, where other people that were maybe developing something using ZFS might have questions that being able to ask the expert was good, but that doesn't always scale. So having one time a month where you can come and ask those questions worked out pretty well. In ZFS, that eventually morphed into the monthly meetings that we have now that are also recorded and put on YouTube. Um, and so, yeah, when we did the first few of those uh, for FreeBSD, they were quite popular. We had over 100 people come out to those, although that was also just at the beginning of the pandemic, as it turned out. And so at first, there were lots of people that actually had the ability to join the video call now that maybe didn't before. But then very quickly, it turned into everybody had had enough of video calls, and it was much harder to get people involved. So we'll have to see what the appetite for it is. But I think getting some of that going again could be good for the community. Just also just foster that sense of community. Uh, we get a lot of that from conferences, but also not everybody can come to the conference, and you
Yeah.
know, it it helps to have something to bridge the gap between the conferences. Like if BSD cans in May and EuroBSD isn't until September, that's a lot of time in between.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that because I believe you used to do the FreeBSD Fridays, right? Or didn't you
I
do
did it once
something?
or twice.
Oh, you were part of them. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And originally, the other thing that I did was back in 2014, 15, no, 2013, was started the BSD Now podcast, where we had a
Oh,
weekly video
right.
podcast with interviews about BSD. That's still going. I'm just not one of the hosts of it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I did see that. That's
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I
great content.
retired after episode 512.
Oh goodness. That's a lot. Doing
Yes.
podcasts every week, that's a lot of work.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was.
it's definitely a time commitment for your
Yeah,
job.
exactly. And so we did those with video for the first couple hundred, and then we switched to audio only to make it less production time. And I hosted for another 100 or something episodes. And then I did every other episode for a while. And then uh, there was just, yeah, the time commitment was too much at that time.
I love the idea of office hours. So let's make sure we talk about that if when you get that in place so we can help promote that and
Mhm.
whatever it is that we need to do to make that really successful. So you've mentioned a couple times about OpenZFS. So talk to me about that. Yeah, talk to me about that.
Yeah, so ZFS is something I got interested in at my first BSD conference. I think it was the first two talks at that particular conference were about Beehive and ZFS. And so both of those got me very enthused about what was going on there because I hadn't heard of either of those before. So that made me one of the very first users of Beehive and got me very interested in ZFS and eventually went on to help develop ZFS and work on that. And that's one of the things Clara does now. And through that, I've basically been one of the people on the OpenZFS leadership team that represents the FreeBSD project, especially since the changeover that happened with FreeBSD 13. where we went to the one common repo that supports both FreeBSD and Linux at the same time with the same code base. Using that, it means that there needs to be extra communication between the ZFS project and FreeBSD to both make sure that FreeBSD is keeping up its side of keeping everything working and porting new features as they come, but also that FreeBSD is being represented when the ZFS project is making decisions.
Mhm. Yeah, that is something we noticed in a recent survey that ZFS was one of the top technologies that the community was interested in. So we definitely took notice of that. But didn't you tell? I think you said you were on the leadership team with the Open ZFS project.
Yeah, so there's a leadership meeting every 4 weeks. That's an open Zoom call that anybody can join, and it's also recorded and then posted to YouTube. And yeah, I'm part of the leadership team there, and I'm the kind of backup host. So when Matt Aarons, one of the founders of the ZFS project from 2001, isn't around, the last meeting was yesterday, and I was the host because Matt had childcare responsibilities.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that would explain the good microphone. So,
Well, that's
uh,
from the podcast.
yeah, exactly. It's nice. So what kind of things are you looking forward to from with the project in the upcoming years?
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. You're seeing the improvements happening on the networking side and so on. One of the areas I'm most interested in is continuing to develop the MAC framework, the mandatory access control system that
Mhm.
allows the not necessarily a user, but somebody building an appliance or just a custom server or whatever to build modules that change the way security works on FreeBSD. So, one of the ones that's available by default now is for NTP, for the Network Time Protocol. In the past, that program had to run as root so that it could change the clock on the system, because normally, a normal user is not allowed to do that. So if you ran the daemon as an unprivileged user, they wouldn't be able to fix the clock and keep it in sync. But using the Mac framework, it was possible to say, this one specific user that has this user ID is allowed to do something different than the default security policy, which is only root can change the clock.
Mhm.
And that allowed us to make it so NTPD can run unprivileged, but still be able to change the clock, so that when there's a CVE in NTPD, it doesn't allow someone to gain any further access to the system. And at Clara, we've extended that further. We added a Mac module that allows you to restrict the debugger, so that if you have an appliance in the field and it crashes, a user at the console can still get the backtrace and some useful information to be able to make a bug report, but can't access just arbitrary memory and maybe expose private keys and other data that they shouldn't be able to have access to.
Mm. Oh,
And then recently, Baptiste Dresson, one of the other major contributors to FreeBSD, built MacDo, which is kind of a replacement for sudo that uses that same kind of Mac framework of saying, these specific users are allowed to do things that normally would require root access. But the way MacDo works means you don't have to use, set UID privileges on a file, which can be much more secure this way.
oh, okay.
And I think that framework has some opportunities for improvements and some performance enhancements, and just to be able to continue to grow and do a lot more with it, and maybe subsume a lot of the more legacy ways that things are done to work around that kind of privilege separation.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so if somebody wanted to get involved in either one of these projects, what do you suggest they do to get involved?
Yeah, so for FreeBSD, it's mostly just you have to find some bit of FreeBSD that interests you that you want to work on. Warner and the Source Manager group have been doing great work towards being able to accept pull requests from GitHub. And so that makes it much easier for someone to get started now, as they can use a workflow they're much more used to of just
Yeah.
forking FreeBSD on GitHub and make your first couple of changes that way, instead of this barrier to entry we had before, was like, well, learn all the FreeBSD ways to do it and then make your first patch. Whereas this way, you
Oh,
can make your
yeah.
first couple of patches and get familiar with FreeBSD, so that that next step is a lot less daunting. And I think that will go a long way to getting more people contributing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's yeah, we should let I'm just thinking that I should probably yeah, share that more with the community. I'm sure there's some people that went to try it before and
Mhm.
walked away and now that we've made it a little easier with the GitHub. Anyway,
Yeah,
I'm
I
sure we
think
talked about it before, but it sounds like something I need to continue to remind people. You never know if they see your post. That's second.
exactly. I know Warner's working on a draft of an article about this for the FreeBSD journal. So the
Okay.
next issue of that will have kind of a walkthrough of how to get started, which will be a great resource to be able to point people to.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that'll be great. I'm looking forward to that. Good. Anything else you want to share with the community on FreeBSD Day here today?
I don't know. There's so much going on in FreeBSD at any time. It's hard to keep up, and I've been uh, using FreeBSD for over 25 years and been really involved for more than 10 now, and yeah, it's just always amazing to see all the things that are happening. Uh,
Yeah, I was noticing that myself as, I've only been here, what, not even a full year, and just the number of projects going on and the number of updates that we're getting and improvements that the community is making to the operating system. Yeah, it is hard. It's hard from even my perspective to keep up and let everybody know. So yeah, I
yeah,
see.
like I think one that we saw land just this week was the Plan 9 file system support. So Doug Rabson managed to finish up work that had been, started and incremented by a bunch of different people. I think the original work came out of Juniper with a team of 3 or 4 people, and then it kind of got set aside for a while, and somebody else picked it up and worked on it a bit, and then another person worked on it a bit, and finally Doug managed to finish it and land it. And so that's officially part of FreeBSD now.
There you go. Okay, thank you for that suggestion on something that I can write about. So I'll get we'll get working on writing up that file system support. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me on FreeBSD Day and talking to our community. And I look forward to talking with you on another topic again in the future,
Yeah.
and working with you in your role on core team as well.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks
Thanks,
so much,
everyone.
Alan.